Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of our three-part series leading up to the release of Wakanda Forever. I am Bob in Cascadia. That is Matt in the Southland. We are Uncanny Trek. Matt, how the hell are you doing tonight?
Doing okay, Bob. Black Panther, not what I expected. Very
Yeah,
entertaining.
we're reading the first two volumes of John Ridley's new Black Panther series that started, I believe, in 2021, where it's called The Long Shadow. It's the first 5 issues, and it's Matt's first Black Panther comic.
Yeah, I was not aware that because in one of the issues we find out that it's issue number 200. I didn't realize that there was, that's relatively short publishing history for a comic book character that I thought had been around longer.
He first appears in Fantastic Four in like the mid 60s, and then he joins the Avengers a few years later. But they don't start doing solo stories with him, except for I think there was maybe one issue of Avengers that was a solo story, but they don't really start doing solo stories with him until the mid 70s in a unfortunately named title, Jungle Action. In fairness, that was back in the day where that was a regular genre. You had Tarzan comics and Shayna the She-Devil comics, all that. It's actually a great series, and it built a lot of the mythology that had only been hinted about. But he gets a regular series, I think, in the late 70s when Jack Kirby comes back to Marvel. And that went for maybe 15 issues. And then there was a long series in the late 90s and the early aughts that went for about 60 issues that I highly recommend. Maybe one day in the distant future, we might look at stuff from that. That's like Christopher Priest and Mark Terexia. That's the good stuff. And then, yeah, there's been intermittently series since. So, yeah, it comes together to 200 issues, which I guess is about 16 years of comics.
This was published in what year?
2022. Well, it started in 2021, I think. Well, that's an interesting point. We'll get to that when we get to that. So our main creative team here is writer John Ridley and artist Juan Cabal. Do you know Ridley?
Yeah, I know he wrote 12 Years a Slave. I mean, most of his stuff has been like work on movies, correct?
He's done screenplays for movies. He's also the producer for some TV, and he's written some comics. Did you see 12 Years a Slave?
No, I did not.
I really liked it back in like 2013. I don't know how like it holds up or if modern sensibilities have moved beyond it already, but I really liked it back when it was in theaters. Did you ever see that Iraq War movie, Three Kings?
I think I did see that, yes.
He did the screenplay for that, which is maybe the only good movie about Desert Storm. So he should get a medal for that. And then have you read any of his Future State Batman?
I read a couple of issues when they were first being dropped of Future State Batman. It was different. I don't really know. The only thing that bothered me was we finally get a black Batman and he covers up his face completely.
I really didn't like it. Maybe I'll go back to it in a couple years and try again. Sometimes when I do that, I have a different response. But yeah, I didn't really like the Future State Batman. And he also did something called The Other History of the DCU, which I was initially excited about. But man, I gotta tell you, I can't really recommend it. It's a kind of weird project where it's tell DC continuity from like minority characters' POV, which is a fine thing, but the result is it's really just illustrated text, and the illustrated text is basically summarizing 70s, 80s, 90s, early aughts comics continuity, like the X-Men grand design, but less well done, I would say.
That sounds really interesting, but I don't know. The format you've just described doesn't sound like what it should have been.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting, but I promise you, it's not as interesting as you would hope.
Do you know, is Future State Batman, is that in a trade yet?
Oh, yeah. It's because they did I don't think it's collected well because DC can't do anything right. There's a huge Future State Batman trade that does all the Future State minis that involve Batman, which includes a lot that doesn't involve the new Batman. And then there's an ongoing series called I Am Batman that I think has run for about 20 issues, but I don't think it's going to run for any longer.
I would consider picking that one back up again, and just because I would know it would have a full story. That's how I am. When I start reading single issues, when I get back in that phase of going back and picking up single issues, sometimes it doesn't hit as good as it would. This Black Panther book's probably the same way. I would read the first issue and be like, that's cool, and then probably not pick it up again. Grade, and it draws you in, like, okay, I gotta finish this.
That's one of the hard things about comics as a medium is, yeah, it's really hard to get people to commit based on a single issue, even if they like it.
Right.
Yeah, I will say, did you hear the controversy about later issues of Future State Batman?
No, no.
Future State Batman is one of Lucius Fox's sons, not the one who was already Batwing in the New 52 continuity,
yeah,
but the other one. I also really didn't like that it turns out the Batwing son, Luke Fox, is a traitor. I don't really care for that. But yeah, no, later issues of Future State Batman, Me Too, Lucius Fox, because as far as I could tell from the preview page I read online, he had a consensual relationship with a coworker and subordinate. And so Future State Batman cancels his father for that.
Oh God.
Yeah, steal yourself. Really quickly, I did want to say one comic series that Ridley wrote that I really did like was a Wildstorm series called American Way. It's a revisionist American history superhero series. It's only 2 trades. It's worth picking up. American Way is good. And then our artist, Juan Cabal, he worked on the most recent Guardians of the Galaxy series with writer Al Ewing, which I mostly liked. There's some stuff that's a little weird about it, but I mostly liked it.
Like I said before, I hadn't read any Black Panther comics prior to this. Growing up, I thought he was a clone of Batman.
But he's Batman if he were the king of a secret kingdom.
Right, but you have to read the comics. Because I didn't read the comics, I didn't know that. I just assumed that's what he was. Yeah.
In fairness to us, he was not prominent when we were at the golden age of anything when you're 12.
Right,
And
yeah.
so he wasn't very prominent in 1995, 1997, right? That Priest Terexia series, I want to say, started in 98 or 99. He missed us a little.
Yeah, but that's why with the Marvel movies, though, I have a new respect for the character, which is awesome. And I'd like what we're going to go into here with each of the issues from the trade. He's got a different vibe to him.
You can
I don't
tell,
really know how
you
to
can
it's
tell
just-
really different stories with him than you can with Iron Man or Batman, who are probably the superheroes.
He's the king of a successful nation that has one of the most valuable resources on it. So it's a whole different set of circumstances he has to deal with.
So
The
Matt,
fact that his kingdom has been hidden away for so long.
pretty much all of history, although, they come out sometimes, like Captain America has an adventure with Black Panther's, originally it's his father, but then it has to be retconned to be his grandfather, right?
Yeah.
Because of the time move. And then there's a pretty cool series I like that sadly only made it like 5 or 6 issues called Black Panther and the Crew. And you find out that Wakanda's been bankrolling civil rights organizations and Black nationalist organizations for its entire history, which that's a nice little reveal. But it was a semi-mythical kingdom until the FF, quote, discover it in, I think, Fantastic Four numbers 52. All right. Do you want to walk us through issue number 1, Matt?
Sure, Bob. So in issue number 1, Black Panther is chewed out 4 different times. First by Captain America for neglecting his role as like the Avengers leader. Second by the new Wakandan Prime Minister Folasad. Is that how you say their name?
That would be my guess, yeah.
Okay. For his impatience with the legislator. And third and fourth by Secret Agent Omalola and his sister Shuri for running a sleeper agent program with 10 of Wakanda's best warriors has led to the death of Panther's former best friend, Jai.
Yeah, Folasa, Omala, and Jai are all new characters for this issue.
They are brand new characters in this issue because I had to go Google them because I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And I found out, they all debuted in this issue. I didn't feel lost, which was a good thing. So if you do decide to pick these up, you're going to feel lost at the very beginning because you're not as familiar with the characters, but these are brand new characters.
Would it be fair to say that the Panther is even busier than Batman?
Bob, I don't know how he keeps up all this.
There's more too, right? We have a reference to the fact that he spent some time in space, which happened at the end of the prior run by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Brian Stelfreeze.
Yeah, apparently he's the emperor of the Intergalactic Empire, Bob.
Yeah, the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. Not to be confused with actual Wakanda. Two different entities.
Yeah, the man is sought after.
They've done some cool stuff with the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda in the Last Annihilation crossover, but it's pretty clear that Ridley doesn't care about it and doesn't want to bring it up at all, which is fair enough.
Panel in this whole trade, nothing else.
So what's going on with Panther and the Avengers also reflects what's going on in Jason Aaron's Avengers run. I was really liking it, but it's gone really, really multiversal, which isn't my thing. Black Panther becomes the leader of the Avengers, and it becomes a really big problem for America because he's the monarch of basically the most powerful nation on Earth.
Right.
And so America freaks out and reforms the Squadron Supreme as this American nationalist team. And it's a cool scenario. Yeah, man, Aaron's a king. I wouldn't be averse to us discussing it, but man, it would take 10 or 12 episodes.
Going back to Panther being so busy all the time, Bob, he has created this awesome sleeper agent plan.
Yeah, which his sister and Umala really, really dislike. To me, man, it seems evidently rational. This is what you do in the Marvel Universe where Dr. Doom, Namor, and the Great Satan, America, are your international rivals. You got to be ruthless, man.
It makes incredible sense, and I really don't have a problem with it.
That's one of the problems with modern superheroes, right? On the one hand, Marvel and DC characters usually have to be these bastions of morality, but they also want to tell realistic stories, and there's always doesn't always work very well. We have the Parliament, and they talk about how the Parliament is new. So it's interesting that in some ways Ridley doesn't care about some of the stuff that Coates did in his run, like the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda, but he is much more interested in this new Wakandan parliament. One
So
other thing I would say, just as a teaser, is they don't always emphasize this, but sometimes they tease that T'Challa or the Panther's predecessors were actually much more ruthless. The dude who's kind of the villain in the white suit, who's the head of the secret police, they're called I think the Hot Zeraz is how you say it. And the Hot Zeraz, it's hinted in several different runs that they were much more ruthless and had a much freer reign under T'Challa's father and other prior kings. Even before he allowed a constitutional monarchy to go forward, he kind of moderated on some of the secret policing and intelligence matters, it sounds like.
at the end of issue 1, Bob, there's this weird teaser page that threw me for a loop. I'm not used to seeing these things, especially in trades. They let us know that Storm's going to be involved at some point. There's one panel with T'Challa interacting with Storm, and Storm's all lit up, so you think that she's going to kill him, but we know how that works. Panther, there's another panel that shows that Panther and Cap may go head to head at some point. And then there's a panel of Wakandan security guards surrounding both Panther in costume and Omolola in costume.
It's not quite, but pretty much gets us to the end of the trade.
Right. So I don't understand what the point is with showing us that. That's weird. I've never seen anything like that before.
It is a little weird to put it in the trade, but I guess completionists want all the original art.
Right.
And it's not unheard of for comics to do that in a first issue, to do that coming in the first year of thing.
Yeah, it was very weird for me. I haven't seen that as much. So maybe
Kieran Gillen's first issue of Uncanny X-Men did it. I know other things have done it, but that's the only one that comes to mind.
That's a weird idea, but I guess it does make sense for single issues. If I was collecting these with single issues, I would want to know what's coming ahead. I want to purchase the issues. But not
it definitely makes more sense for the single issue rather than the trade.
Bob,
All
so
right, you want to walk us through
issue number two?
Yeah.
In issue number 2, Panther and Omolola are pulling in the other sleeper agents, but with mixed success. So they're going out, they're looking for these sleeper agents, telling them, hey, we need you to no longer be a sleeper agent.
Along with this, poor Shuri finally gets to fulfill a lifelong dream, apparently, and visit Santiago de Chile, which was the site of the murder of Jai in the first issue.
Right.
But sadly, she only gets to see an alley. But at least she does get to treat her older brother like a chauffeur, which cracked me up.
So what's with the crow hair, Bob?
Early in the Coates run, she dies and gets resurrected, and while she's in the afterlife, she gets new powers and new wisdom. As I remember, it's been a bit since I've read the start of the Coates run, but it seems it's all vague, and it seems vague here.
Okay, yeah, well, it is vague enough for me to think that the first time I saw it, it was just some artist style type thing. They're just trying to be cool. She really just came over on a plane. But no, then she did it again in another issue. So I was like, okay, apparently.
One of the agents they go for is Kimura, who was this Washington, D.C. sleeper agent. She doesn't want to come in. She's got a family, got to believe a husband and a daughter. T'Challa, or the Panther, leaves surveillance on her, sees assassins come in, and we got a nice little Kill Bill Volume 1 homage where Kimura is picking up the kitchen knife to fight her assassin. I dug that.
Yeah, domestic fighting always involves kitchen knives, Bob.
But thankfully, Panther and Umala are able to help Kimura, so the Panther doesn't have a second agent death on his conscience. And Matt, do you want to walk us through number 3?
So in issue 3, Panther visits the Queen of Mars, who is his ex-wife Storm, and they meet some hostility from X-Men Gambit, Rogue, and Gentle.
No real hostility from Rogue, right? Just hostility from Gambit and Gentle.
I just want to make sure I put that Rogue was there.
Even though I think she hardly talks, and neither she nor Gambit have any Southernisms, which made me sad.
They were in that teaser, Bob.
So they were in that teaser. So Matt, did you know who this guy Gentle was?
No, I had no clue. I gathered from my intel that he's apparently like a Wakandan mutant who can temporarily expand his muscle mass to become invulnerable. He can lift 100 tons of stuff. And he's got these vibranium tattoos, which are a common thing on Wakanda that I was not familiar with.
I think they're also supposed to contain his powers or contain his mass growth.
I was very confused in the actual comic because Storm kept saying the word gentle, and I thought she was just telling them to chill. You can calm
Yeah.
down.
I had stuff with Gentle before, but I had to refresh myself on who he was too. He was created in the mid-aughts for the Kyle and Yost new X-Men series, which is a pretty fun series. And he's been around since then, but he was created rather late in the new X-Men series, if I remember right. And he was not super prominent there or later. I think the only other series he's been very prominent in, there was a recent series called X-Men Red by Tom Taylor and Muhammad Asser. And that was like Jean Grey, back from the dead, was leading an X-Men squad. It wrapped a little before Hickman relaunched the X-Men to Krakoa in 2019, but I think Gentle was pretty prominent in that, if I recall correctly.
Storm is the queen of Mars, right?
It is a recent thing.
But clarify for me, she's the leader of Arakko.
Well,
Arakko is Mars.
It wasn't always Mars.
But Arakko is also Krakoa's sister.
There's a really cool crossover called X of Sword that's where Krakoa and Arakko re-encounter each other and you meet the mutants of Arakko. That happened maybe a year or so after Hickman's relaunch. At the end of that, both Arakko and Krakoa are on Earth. The Arakko mutants are a little too aggressive and they keep getting in trouble. I think it was the 2021 Hellfire Gala. The mutants, they terraform Mars and they move Arakko to Mars.
And they're a little too rowdy on Arakko Mars.
They declare Storm the queen of Mars, and they declare Arakko the capital of the solar system. And so now the X-Men are dealing with the Shi'ar and the Kree and the Skrull as the galactic power that speaks for Earth. And this has understandably made the Avengers and the Earth a little upset, right?
That's insane. If you can't get into this crazy, can't read comics anymore. Literally, Storm is the queen of Mars, which is actually Krakoa's sister. Keep in mind, if you're going to read X-Men.
It's great, man. It's the best X-Men comics have been in years and years and years.
Crazy sci-fi.
Storm being the queen of Mars is the central concern of the second X-Men Red series, not to be confused with the one I was just talking about, but the one that's either currently ongoing or has just wrapped up. I'm not actually sure. It's a little confusing, but Al Ewing is writing it. Stefan Caselli is doing the art. It's a great series. We should really, really talk about it. It's only 2 volumes, right? Famous scene in Watchmen where Ozymandias tells Night Owl, I did it 5 minutes ago. X-Men Red has a version of that I think I like a little better than the Watchmen.
So issue number 3, Bob, is the 200th issue of Black Panther. So since the series debuted in 1977 under Jack Kirby.
And we need to commemorate that anniversary, Matt.
So they had 2 backups, but there really wasn't much. They didn't have anything to do with the overarching.
Not really. It sounded like you had a little bit of take on.
I dug the art of the first one, Bob. It had like an Afrofuturist art style. Very cool looking story that was taking place. But the second issue introduced a character I had no clue who he was. His name's Tosin, and they seem to make a big deal out of him.
Yeah, so the writer-artist, he's new. You pretty much know as much as I do about him.
Lots of new characters in this. Good starting point.
Yeah, the writer-artist for the first backup that you somewhat liked is Juni Bai, who is apparently Senegalese. And I think this is basically the only thing they've done for Marvel. And yeah, Ridley and Jermaine Peralta do the second backup. Yeah, the new character, he's going to sort of show up later in the run.
Basically, he just disagrees with Wakanda's current government. And he wants to return it to the way it was before. Which
a reformer figure.
I got this gut feeling we're going to find out it's the Black Panther's son or something.
His whole thing is he's disgusted by everybody in Wakanda, not just the hot Zerzaz or the Parliament, but also T'Challa himself.
Issue number 4 has Storm discovering the truth about Panther's deception and Shuri discovering that Jai's assassin was actually Wakanda.
Scene where Storm kisses Panther goodbye and then immediately shifts to intimidating Gentle. We didn't mention it, but in issue number 3, Gentle comes on very strong, arguably too strong in his hostility to T'Challa to cover up the fact that he's T'Challa's secret agent, first on Krakoa and then on Arakko. We had what I thought was a pretty funny line, T'Challa to Umala on the flight back to Earth away from Arakko, where he says divorce has a funny way of bringing people together.
We're going to say nope on that one, German. That was totally a lie.
Matt doesn't buy that one.
I don't know anybody that agrees with that.
We have a revelation when we get back to Wakanda that Shuri thinks Umala is the traitor here. And so we get a really good fight between the Panther and Umala. There's very nice flow where at one point she's on top, at another point Panther's on top. So I really enjoyed that fight. But Matt, are you convinced by Umala's protestations of innocence, despite the fact Shuri found evidence that she was cheating on Jai?
I felt it was a bit of a long shot to accuse her of treason just with the evidence you have of infidelity.
It's pretty socially conservative in
Yeah.
Wakanda.
I tried to put two and two together. I was like, okay, makes sense. I don't
Is
see it
that
holding up in court.
Is that the eighth commandment, Matt? They take the eighth commandment real seriously down in Wakanda.
Apparently.
Yeah, it is interesting how often Black Panther comics focus on a rogue female Wakandan agent. Priest's run in the late 90s that I've referenced before, and it's I think the best Panther run. It does that. And then the previous Ta-Nehisi Coates run did that too. It had two Rogue Dora Milaje, who even got a brief spinoff book, though the Rogue Dora Milaje were a little bit more sympathetic than the villain that Priest came up with in the late 90s.
All right, so Bob, at issue number 5, we have Shuri deciding that Umalola is probably innocent of treason and accuses Akil, who is the head of the Wakandan secret police, pronounced much better than I will be able to, Hatut Zaraze, the secret police, which she just points him out just out of nowhere too. I think they need to get better detective training.
I'm pretty sure that they don't bring up the Hatut Zaraz in the first Panther movie at all. Maybe they will in the second, but if they do it in the film, that will help clarify it, because it's the only reason I know how to say Dora Milaje is because of the first movie. Well, really the cartoon. Were you surprised that this ended on a cliffhanger? We have Panther, Shuri, and Umala all going rogue and fleeing Wakanda.
I was surprised, and I wanted to continue reading, which I guess from a publisher's point of view is the way to go, because now I want to read the next issue. I do appreciate when a single trade has a satisfying conclusion, but I don't think, Ridley has to worry too much about having his run cut.
It's funny you should mention that, Matt, because it turns out I didn't know this when I suggested that we would do it, and I probably would have still suggested we do it. But apparently this series is ending at number 15. There's just going to be one more trade after volume 2, and then the last issue is going to be in March, and then in the summer they're going to relaunch a new Panther series under a new writer. Her name is Eve Ewing, and I haven't read her stuff, but she's written Ironheart, the young Iron Man inventor girl, and I think she also wrote the Champion series.
10 issues away from saying I read a full run of Black Panther.
You'll successfully read Black Panther Volume 8. Only 2 more trades to go. We'll cover the next trade next week, and then once it's wrapped, we'll go ahead and do a final. Oh, we look forward to that, Matt. Did you have a visual of the week? Do you resent me for suggesting this?
No, it's actually very entertaining. I just never picked up a Black Panther comic book before, but now that the films are out to look at, I don't feel like they've reinvented him. They just brought him to the masses, which is good.
There's some stuff I don't like about that first Black Panther movie, but overall, you have to give it credit. Pretty interesting and pretty faithful version of the character. This is my second read of the Ridley Panther, or at least the first 2 trades of the Ridley Panther run. I have to say, some of the dialogue lands poorly on my second read. Not the line about divorce. I thought that was hilarious. But some of the other dialogue lands poorly. And overall, I really like this series. It's definitely not, I don't think it's at the level of the Christopher Priest or Don McGregor runs on Panther, but it's a good run, and I'm glad we're going to keep covering it. All right. Well, this has been the volume 1 of John Ridley's Black Panther, The Long Shadow. We'll be back with volume 2 forever very soon for our little 3-part mini. I am Bob in Cascadia. That is Matt in the Southland. We are part of Uncanny Treks. Have a great night, everybody.
See you for part 2. Thanks for listening.